our
YouTube.
welcome back to our channel.
Hi.
So we are ready with the first lesson.
Yes.
So it's the English lesson.
So welcome back.
So
Andrea today will try to explain me because I didn't read the article and maybe I will learn something new today.
Yes.
About machine learning and deep learning in particular. And
what
is about?
I found an interesting article written by Davide Chicco that is about 10 quick tips for machine learning in computational biology. I need to confess that I didn't know a lot about machine learning and deep learning before reading this article, and I didn't consider so much this stuff in university, so it's new for me and was interesting to try to read it and to read also some other topic about that to better understand what is about and why it's so important. What I can say is that it's really interesting to see how much now machine learning it's used inside our field. I didn't know at all that it's becoming so important to detach to find if someone has a tumor or to understand exactly which type of cells are that what you see in for example in an image. So it's becoming every day more important, and now it's interesting to see that when you exit from a university or you have a background just from school and you have your first job and you want to apply the machine learning stuff to a big number of data that you receive for a work, what you should know before apply an algorithm. So there are stuff that are really important, and the first one that we need to take into consideration is that you need to have the right amount of data for sure, and in particular also it's also more important when you are talking about deep learning. But without entering inside that we can say that it's really important to have a big amount of data. We are now in the big data area, so yes, we should have that, but in the meantime we need to consider that we need to pre-process this data. So we need to sometimes don't consider some data if some of these data can bring our algorithm to the wrong direction, or to try to minimize this error, and this is really crucial to avoid problems. Like it's also really important that we decide to divide the machine learning process in 3 steps. Normally what you read inside a book is that you need to train your machine and then test your machine. So you should have 2 separate sets, the training one and the test one. In reality it's really important that you have a third one, that it's the validating phase before applying a test set. And everything that is inside the set should be different from what is inside the other. So if I consider, for example, patients, I should have a top number of patients in the training set. Normally they are a lot. A set amount, an enough sufficient number to the validate test that are different from what we have before, and just some number for the final part. So using really this machine to found if some to really use this algorithm after that you trained it, and that it's really important and really crucial. And it's also important to consider which is the difference between the positive and negative that we have inside our data. If we have too much difference between the number of positive and negative that we can found. We could have a problem that is that the machine will need a lot of time to learn exactly which are how to arrive to the right direction, how to move to the right direction.
Okay.
So how to find exactly also the correct few number will be a lot more complicated.
So if the data are really imbalanced between them,
Yeah.
the
machine will need a lot more time.
Okay.
To understand that, to pass the validation phase. So you will have a training set that will pass to the validation test, but what happening is that inside the validation there are few possibilities that for example are positive, and so there is a big possibility to have a mistake, and so you will need to retrain the machine and to retry the validation test in this case. A way to avoid that is to normally add a 50% more in both cases, in positive and negative, to the second phase, and then divided by 2. In this, the results. So imagine that we have 90 positive and 10 negative in the training set. We will pass to have 90% positive plus another 50% divided by 2. That will bring us to have a 70% positive in the validation phase, and in the other parts 30% negative. So we will have a bigger number of negative in the second phase. These will train us our machine faster to understand which are the negative also. Okay. So not to recognize only the positive, that will be easier, but also to recognize the negative part.
So you will also always add more data.
Yeah. In particular to add the lower number, to be sure that what you have before, you have lower before in your training set will be higher in the validation set, and in this case you can easier train the machine.
So in this case, as you said before, in the training set they were 10% negative. And then they become 30%. Okay. Becoming
higher, you will find more, and so the machine will recognize easier the highest number now. What is really important also is that we need also to scroll the article. It's important also which are the algorithms that you are choosing. It's important to consider the type of data that you are using, and that will bring you to the right decision, in the sense that you can have a supervised algorithm or an unsupervised algorithm.
Okay, which are the different?
A supervised algorithm is one that where you need to give an input, and you need also to say which will be the output. This algorithm will move with this possibility. In an unsupervised algorithm will have an input, but you don't know which are the output, so it's in other type of question that you will need to use this stuff. So depending of which is the question that you want to solve, you need to use these two, one or the other category, and inside every category you found a lot of different algorithms that you can apply. But for example, one easy that we can talk about, it's the KNN, the K nearest neighbor. It's an algorithm that it's normally used to understand if you need to consider that a value is positive or negative. Okay. So if you imagine that we are in a graph, an XY graph, and we have a value that we are not sure if is positive or negative, we need just to do a circle around this value, and considering the number of neighbor that we can set, can be 3, 4, 5, we will decide if this new data is positive or negative based on which is the highest number of the
the neighbors.
The neighbor, which is the highest of the number of positive or negative, and if they are the same amount of number, which are the nearest between them. And in this case, we will be. Thanks, Miri. Thanks.
Sorry.
We will be easily able to choose that, and also choose a different number of neighbor. You can have a different result for sure. For another things that we need to take into consideration is to avoid the overfitting that happen when we have a machine. We have a validation test that bring us to have what we think that are the right results, but in reality it's just that the machine it's learning, but it's not learning. It's just have inside all the data that are inside the training set. So they are become part of the machine. So it's not learning something new, but this brings to don't have the possibility to train correctly the machine. You should avoid that. You should avoid this dividing the training set in smaller set. That every time it's one different that you apply after the validation set, and in this case the machine can really be trained and then pass to the validation test, and in that case, if that pass the validation test, you can really apply your real data.
So it's always not redoing the same, revising always the
same training set. It's better divided. Normally it's divided in 10, but you can divide also in another number. And in this case, you train with different teacher.
Maybe it's always the subject is always the same, but it's with a different teacher. Yeah, as you were saying.
Yeah, and these can bring. And this can help a lot the machine to arrive to the right answer. And another things that we need to take into consideration that sometimes it's wrong that we consider that the most important data are just the accuracy and the F1 score that are the two most used data in this field. But in reality, it's a lot more important the MCC. That is the Matthew correlation coefficient, because it's a value that can be minus or minus 1 or plus 1, and can make us understand if our equation is moving in the right way, and it's a lot more precise than the accuracy. When we are considering an imbalance between the positive and the negative that we have inside our database. So in this case, it's a lot more important to use the Matthew correlation coefficient. Like it's also important, for example, to use the ROC curve or what it's called also, the precision recall curve. These are two curves made in an XY graph, and considering the recall and the fail out in the case of the arrows, the ROC curve, or the precision and the recall in the case of the precision recall curve, we can understand if our algorithm is bringing us to the right answer, considering the big area that is under the curve. If the area under these two curves is really big, we are moving in the right direction. So
this is a way to understand if.
And then you need just to know exactly which are the formula for the recall, for the fail out, and for the precision. But it's easier applied. It depends to the false positive, false negative, true positive and true negative. It's always this in this easiest case. But there is also another thing that is really important and we can see every time at work, that is try to use open source program, because you can find other company that are not using the same, and in that case you are stuck if you are using a paid program and they are not compatible with what another company has, and these can create some problem, right?
She's really interested in the matter. Okay.
And the last tip that we can say is that it's also really important to receive a feedback like what we are asking now. I know that maybe this article was a little boring, can be, but I really
no,
like
it's not boring. It's a bit complicated for me, for example, because I didn't even know about this this topic, but it's really interesting. It would be nice to understand and learn more about it, and obviously we will like to have some review also from you guys, if you know something more that you can teach us or you can ask us, and then maybe we'll answer in the best way possible.
We are really sorry that for this week we were able only to record this video.
Yeah, because we need to adjust a bit.
Yeah, we are trying to fix this first impression, first problems that we can find, but we will find a way. And I know that Riccardo found something interesting that he will tell in the next Instagram stories. Maybe we will give you some
tip,
before,
some indication of
what will happen. Yeah, it's really an Instagrammer. You will see that. So thanks for watching.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Subscribe, ring the bell.
Leave a like.